So guys, we are back. Last week we weren't here. Ben, what's your excuse?
I fell asleep. That's pretty much the extent. And Manchester United. Oh fuck!
It's never happened.
Do you know what? That might be the. And I'm not even just trying to over-egg it. That is the first time I've ever fucked up.
Right.
I fell asleep and Manchester United.
Right, let's go again from the.
Honestly, that is the first time, isn't it? In all the week.
What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to ForTheFans, the bi-weekly football and football manager podcast with myself, Jack, and my co-host, Ben. Today we're going to be talking about the Premier League fixtures over the weekend, Champions League draw, World Cup draw, and a little bit of FA Cup fever in for good measure. Let's get straight into this. Okay guys, so we are back. I think this is episode 7 now of the ForTheFans podcast. We weren't here last week, Ben was sleeping. We've got a guest on today. Ben's here. Ben, do you want to say hello and then we'll get on to our guest?
Hello everyone, we'll get on to our guest.
Guest?
Good afternoon.
Do you want to introduce yourself, guest, rather than just saying good afternoon there?
I am Keno. I'm a friend of Jack's. That's about it.
A friend? Is that what you think of yourself as?
Well, listeners, if that hasn't enticed you in to listen to the rest of the podcast, I don't know what will.
I did the music.
You did do the music, to be fair, for the intro to the podcast. So if you love a bit of... I'm trying to think of who's in the intro now. You've got...
Ray Hudson.
We got Ray Hudson, but who's the guy who did the Release the Kraken, or was that him as well?
I don't know about that one. I don't think the commentator who did that is famous enough.
There's some commentators that I've been hearing this week. I don't know if you noticed this, but this week the commentators were really bad for the football.
Oh.
There's sometimes where you hear them say generic things. Me and Keno were talking about this before, but you'll hear them go, oh, I've seen it given. Well, that doesn't mean it should be given. It's like these annoying cliches, and they were everywhere this week.
He's got genuine pace, Jack. Genuine pace. Whatever that means.
I want the BBC to sort it out. Anyway, where do we want to kick things off in the Premier League?
Manchester
for the City-Arsenal games. This was a big tie. Man City looking unbeatable at home. Arsenal, top of the league. It was always going to be a big game either way, and I think it surpassed people's expectations in terms of the entertainment value that it provided. So, I don't know where you guys want to kick off this, talking point-wise.
Well, I'll jump in. Why not? Let's get this rolling. I thought City looked really good. I expect them to be good at home. Arsenal, I can't believe conceded 6, because they've actually looked pretty good defensively this year. And they haven't in previous years, so I was kind of shocked. What is a worry for City, and it's kind of after the game this kind of came out, but Aguero's out for 6 weeks. That might impact them a bit, because he played well at the weekend, I thought. And then you've got Arsenal, who we spoke a little about Ozil. I think he could do a lot more for them in big games. I think a lot of people are picking up on it, and not that he goes missing. I just think he doesn't offer enough.
I know
he's one of those. He's not a luxury player, is he? Because he's better than that. He's not like Berbatov. He does actually run around a bit. But he's one of those players that needs to be involved at every instant. You look at players at other clubs and you think, great, if they're going to play well, this player has to be part of everything. And I feel like with Arsenal, if Ozil's part of everything, I think he got an assist, so he wasn't shit. But if Ozil's part of everything, Arsenal will probably win the game. And if Ozil's having an impact, then they'll lose. And City, in that form, Fernandinho and Yaya Touré just bossed everything in the middle against 3 Arsenal players. So I don't know, Keno, what do you make of it? What do you make of Arsenal, I guess?
Well, for the first about 15-20 minutes, they didn't get out there hard. And like you said, Ozil just didn't look bothered. And then he kind of realised that he was playing in quite a big game and sort of played till about half-time. And they came back into it. I can't remember what the score was at half-time.
2-1, I think.
It was 2-1.
Or was it 3-1? I'm not sure. It was it was 2-1. I've just checked.
Yeah, City were winning, yeah.
Yeah, but Arsenal was still looking quite good. And you touched on the defence as well. Koscielny, is he out for about 3 weeks with that gash to his knee? That looked pretty bad.
He went off, didn't he? Yeah. Do you know what? I don't know if that had that much of an impact, because City were at a point where they were just pushing and pushing and pushing. And it looked like either Arsenal were going to break, because Walker obviously came back first game for a long time, starting especially, and got 2 goals, played really well.
Yeah.
But City, something about City at home, because they're not like it away, and it's clear to everyone that their away form is not what their home form is. But at home, they seem to make the pitch look absolutely massive in a way that they use every bit of it. And Yaya Toure takes up about a quarter on his own.
Yeah, it's like it reminds me of sort of the 2000s kind of Chelsea when they were at Stamford Bridge. They used to have that exact same thing with Mourinho, and it's not even like a Pellegrini thing. Like they had that under Mancini as well to an extent. I don't know what it is. They just seem to absolutely command games when they're at home.
I think the thing that's surprised me most about City has been their goal-scoring form, and we talked about this last time we did the podcast because it was straight after the City-Spurs game, and kind of how City just looked like they knew how they wanted to play. I was kind of surprised that they conceded 3 goals because I think both them and Arsenal have looked fairly solid defensively, and I was kind of half expecting, a 2-1 either way, but I don't know, Arsenal, Koscielny and Mertesacker, I've never been their biggest fans, but this year, they've been proving a lot of people wrong. For a long time, people have said, they need a new centre-back kind of thing to solve the problem there, but those 2 guys have been doing a job. And then on the flip side, you have Aguero and Negredo, who have just been absolutely insane in terms of form. And as you mentioned, the injury, I think, could have an interesting impact, especially with Man City, like they've got Liverpool coming up, which granted they are at home for, but I think it'll be interesting to see just how big of a role Aguero plays in kind of their system, because I think he's definitely been kind of their Ozil in many ways, that kind of guy that if they perform, the whole team performs. And I know perhaps Man City aren't quite as reliant on one player, but for me, Aguero is the player that makes City so scary at home. I think
the difference between City and Arsenal is if Ozil doesn't play, they've got someone else who could potentially play that. Like they had Cazorla on the bench. Whereas with City, because they sold Tevez, they've got no one else like Aguero. There's no one else that can come in and do what Aguero does. That said, I think Negredo is an excellent footballer. I said it when they played. I said it when they played Spurs. That I think he is a cut above in this league because of his physicality, and I think that's why Arsenal's defence looks poor, because Negredo will just work and work and work, and he's a strong boy as well, and I think he'll be key. But it'll be interesting to see if Pellegrini plays with Dzeko and Negredo. I don't think he will. I think he'll play 2 wingers, Yaya Toure in behind potentially.
I was going to say,
an extra midfielder.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I was just going to say that Man City, there was a period where they didn't really play with 2 men up top, and then if they did, it very rarely, it'd be kind of the Aguero-Tevez combo, whereas I don't know, I think Negredo is the kind of player who can work on his own very nicely.
I agree.
In terms of being able to hold up the ball, particularly City, they have a lot of players who make runs from deep, Fernandinho, Yaya Toure, both players which perhaps not the most offensive-minded, but they will make those runs, and I think that they're the kind of team, Man City, that can adapt well and play various styles of play because of the players at their disposal, whereas I think that's a problem with some teams like Tottenham, that they don't have those kind of, I guess, the flexibility in the system if a player does get injured.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. A big point of Arsenal's play this season has been their midfield. Like Arsenal have been very good in midfield, and what happened at the weekend was that Fernandinho and Toure managed to boss Ramsey, Wilshere, and Ozil on their own, and that is purely because they've got the ability and the drive to go forward and beyond the first man, who's always Ozil, and then Wilshere's kind of out wide, kind of tucking in, and Flamini was there as well. I totally forgot about Flamini. So 2 of them effectively managed 4 players, because Silva's not the kind of guy that'll sit in between them and close down the tackle. He's there as a creative output. So to put Toure and Fernandinho in there, and then be able to boss the creative midfield of Arsenal to an extent where they can't have as much impact on the game as a 2v4 can, then I think that's a lot of credit goes to those 2 for City.
It was pretty impressive, and you can only really do that. You mentioned about the 2 strikers. There's been a bit of a trend, particularly in the Premier League this season, of a move to sort of playing a front partnership, and playing. It's kind of like a natural sort of progression from the 4-2-3-1, because you've still got like those 2 central midfielders, obviously City with Toure and Fernandinho, and like you said, only those 2 could probably do a job on Arsenal's midfield like that, because they're both so mobile and powerful. But Pellegrini, we see it with City with the 2 strikers, Aguero and Negredo. Man United could play a 4-4-2, And also teams like Atletico Madrid playing Costa and Villa up front. Teams are starting to play a lot more. It's kind of like the double pivot midfield has become so strong that they can now sacrifice that number 10 and just go to pure strikers up front and keep those kind of inverted wingers.
For me, it's what a lot of teams are doing, especially in the Premier League, are having a main man who, for example, if you look at the teams in the Premier League, you've got Giroud, you've got Negredo, arguably, you've got Sturridge, Van Persie, and then they'll always have a guy just off him who can play as that striker up front if they want them to, but will just float. There's a lot more of this kind of floaty attitude.
Yeah.
Suarez does it, Aguero does it, Ozil does it, and Rooney does it. And they're just in and around, not even given a role, I don't think.
Yeah.
Just told to cause havoc. And the player for that team that creates the most havoc will usually be on the winning team.
It's all them shadow strikers.
Exactly that.
Yeah, that's true, because you could, with Suarez at Liverpool and then Rooney, they're not number 10s, are they? You wouldn't class them as, like David Silva type players, but they do kind of play, like you said, in that kind of role off the striker in a 4-4-2 kind of thing. But it's interesting the way that's going, particularly this season. It's been pretty visible with the amount of kind of good strike partnerships that we've got in the Premier League, particularly this season. Like with Rodgers, Brendan Rodgers' side, you'd expect them to play, 3 up front with 1 central striker, but he's kind of recognised that and moved towards that 3-5-2 at times because he realises the need to accommodate those 2 strikers.
I was going to say, the Premier League's kind of evolved tactically, like kind of since the noughties, really. 4-4-2 was standard. Then there was kind of 2004 Chelsea side where the 4-3-3 became a little bit more prominent. Then it kind of switched to the 4-2-3-1 in recent years, and now we're seeing this kind of new direction where it's always becoming, I want to say, a 4-2-2-2 of ways.
Yeah.
Where it's not, I don't want to say 4-4-2-2 because it's not really a recognised strike partnership, but it's kind of a 4-4-1-1. It's impossible to define because, as you said, the players aren't given a role, but there is a strike partnership there. It's just that one of the two doesn't really have a designated position and instead just floats into the space to be kind of the creative outlet of the team.
Yeah, I think that's the characteristic of this kind of 2013 4-4-2, if you want to call it that, is the kind of the inverted winger inside forward people on either side, because it's not like you're kind of Arrigo Sacchi 4-4-2 with wingers. They're not bolting down the line and whipping them in, apart from Navas. He's a bit of an exception. City started with Silva and Nasri, I think it was, on either side, and they're both not wingers. That's kind of the main difference. So yeah, like you said, 4-2-2-2 is probably a better way of.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like wing-backs in the Premier League for a very long time have kind of been getting into it. I think this season has been the season where wing-backs have become so key to teams' build-up play that there's a lot more goals flying in because it's at the detriment of their defences. You kind of look at teams now, there's very few Premier League teams that play with full-backs, players who will defend, sit in a back four. Especially kind of high up, you've got teams playing a fluid style, they'll have their wingers, your Zabalettas, your Glenn Johnsons, your Enriques when they're playing, Ashley Cole, pushing up the wing and really giving the team the width rather than having your Navas, as you mentioned, who hugs the byline and just pings in balls because of the way football's going. And I feel like some of the results we've seen, particularly City, demolishing teams, by 6 goals and whatever, it's just because, I don't know, I don't feel like teams have quite worked out the best way to kind of counteract the style that they play with this kind of... I mean, how do you beat a team where you've got 3 central midfielders or 4 central midfielders and you're getting bossed out by Yaya Toure and Fernandinho? I don't think there's a solution. If there is, answers on a postcard, but I just don't know how you can counteract that very effectively for 90 minutes without, your players getting absolutely knackered, because Fernandinho and Yaya Toure are incredibly unique players in kind of, I guess, their stature, their physical prowess and just how technically good they are on the ball.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you make about wing-backs. You look at the top 5 right now, all of them, and I think this might be the difference between how Tottenham and Manchester United are getting on compared to the others. You've got Baines and Coleman, you've got Johnson and whoever's left back, like Flanagan recently has been excellent for Liverpool. Yeah. You've got Zabaleta and Clichy, you've got Ivanovic and Azpilicueta. They don't do it as much, actually. They're a little bit more defensive than the others. And then you've got Gibbs and Sanya. And all those top 5 teams utilise their wing-backs far better than anyone else in the league, for my money. And
Well,
I think Tottenham really suffer for that, and I think Manchester United do as well.
Yeah.
Manchester United have, because when I think of Manchester United team, you think of players that have played fullback for them. Evra did it for a time really consistently when United were in leagues over and over again. Would get forward and get beyond the winger. And Gary Neville did it. I know that's going quite a far back, but do you know what I mean? Like you'd see those overlaps, and United haven't done that as much this season, mainly because they don't have the ball as much. And you look at the teams in the top 5; all are really comfortable in possession. And to me, the two teams in the so-called top 7 that don't look that comfortable are Tottenham and United, and they're two teams that are really struggling this season.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably move on to. Now you're talking about United, we could go on to the game yesterday.
It's a great link. It's a great link.
Keno's identifying the link, which Ben has set up. He's going to bang it in the goal. Keno, go. You were at the game yesterday as a Villa fan. What happened?
Nathan Baker happened, which he happens a lot. We started really well. Kind of the first 15 minutes, Albrighton, who was good throughout, actually, he was our only decent player. He was getting down the line a lot and cutting inside as well, linking it with Benteke. We started quite brightly, and we did actually. We've still started okay in a lot of matches this season, and then the usual problems appeared. Basically, it was Kieran Clark and Nathan Baker just doing their best to let United have a few free shots on goal. I mean, the second goal, it was particularly noticeable where he gave the ball away. But if we start with those two centre-halves, invariably we concede a couple every game.
See, what I thought was interesting was the fact that I don't know who plays the more defensive-minded kind of central midfielder for Villa, but a lot of United's goals came from runs from deep, where they simply just didn't pick up their men. And I almost empathise for the centre-back in a way, because if he goes, the player passes it. If he doesn't close down the player and leaves a man, doesn't leave his man that he's up marking, then they score. It kind of looked to me as if Villa just kept getting caught out. It's weird with Villa because they like to play a counter-attacking style, and their fast players really aid them nicely to being able to, ping the ball up to Gabby, down the line you go, son. Run. But I think at home, Lambert really wants to start kind of develop a bit more of a kind of attacking style. And I think because what you saw was a lot of United's goals coming from midfielders pushing up a little bit more than perhaps they would away from home, trying to build up an attack. Albrighton got caught out of position a few times, although I must admit he was probably the best player on the pitch for Villa. But there was just kind of this gap that emerged because as the other players pushed forward, the defenders were wanting to sit deep because that's how they played, and so these gaps emerged in the centre of midfield, which then there was no one really for Villa who kind of filled that void, and so you saw kind of the runs from deep that United got, particularly the Cleverley goal where he comes from deep and there's just a give and go, he's through and he scores. To me, Villa's problem was that I don't want to say they're not playing to their strengths at home, but I feel like Lambert feels as if we're at home, we have to kind of go for the win and try and attack a little bit more, whereas at least my kind of general opinion is there is no shame in sitting back and playing counter-attack if that's what you're good at against Manchester United at home.
Well, yeah, I was saying to Ben before we started, actually, I think a couple of points from that. One, we missed Delph a lot. He was suspended yesterday. So that, like you said, he would have been able to track some of those runners from deep because he's so mobile. And Silla, who came in, just wasn't good enough. I mean, even Mark Lawrenson managed to notice that on Match of the Day, which is a feat in itself. He noticed that Silla wasn't good enough. So, yeah, we missed Delph. And I get what you mean about the, Lambert trying to give us a new kind of style at home, which is what we need because we've been poor at home. And a lot of the times when we play a team that sort of just decides to sit back because they're away, a team, maybe lower half team. So a good example of that would be Cardiff. I know we won 2-0, but 2 goals were very late. When we play a team like that, we don't kind of know what to do. It's easier for us when we're away from home and we can hit them on the break. But we don't have really the quality. I just think we're a couple of players short of being able to play that style. I mean, like the defensive midfielder is usually Westwood. He's fine in there. And yesterday he was about the only midfielder that I'd keep from that midfield three. The other two were El Amadi and Silla. So Delph would start in that. And we're still missing one central midfielder or maybe a bit more of an attacking player who can service Benteke a bit, because right now he's not getting anything. He's having to just occasionally fashion a chance for himself, survive on a few scraps from wing play, stuff like that. And there was a lot of statistics about him not scoring, but I don't really think it's been down to him too much because we've not been supplying him at all.
Yeah. I thought one thing that was...
Do you think that's the key thing? Sorry, Jack. Do you think that's the key thing with Benteke? Because he's kind of under a lot of criticism because when Villa play well, Benteke scores. So is it that you're not playing well, or is it that he's not working as hard?
I think probably a combination of the two, but he's looked demotivated at times, especially in the last 2 or 3 games, when he's just getting ridiculous passes fired into him. I don't think the game that the Villa crowd began to kind of whinge at him a little bit was the Sunderland game about a month ago. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago at home, which is a 0-0. It was an awful game, and he was playing up against John O'Shea and Wes Brown, very, very experienced sort of centre halves, and I don't think he probably won maybe 1 or 2 headers in the entire match. They just did a job on him between them, and it was obvious that they were trying to target him and sort of keep him out of the game. And after about sort of the 60th minute, he just didn't look interested. But it's a combination of the two in answer to your question, because we're not playing to his strengths and we're not getting the best out of him at the moment.
I was just going to come on to the player on his strength. I don't agree with the 4-3-3 that Villa are playing. I understand that you want to use your pacey players down the wings and whatever, but against United's big weakness is that they're kind of defensive midfield. They have no one who kind of sweeps up the mess, a Carrick, or a Fletcher, the kind of player who's going to win the ball for you in the centre of the park. And what I felt like Villa would have been far better if maybe they stuck, instead of playing 2 wide men and kind of one central striker, if they were to maybe play 2 strikers and 1 player just off them. Because I think at the moment what's happening is they run down the wing, then they just ping the ball into the box for Benteke and hope he's going to bury it. Whereas, yes, Benteke is okay in the air, but I think like a lot of Villa players, he's a lot better with the ball down on the ground, charging at defenders, being that physical kind of fox in the box in many ways and crafting out chances. And it just kind of felt to me like, because Villa were trying to play down the wings, and because, as we mentioned earlier, United played with fullbacks rather than kind of the wing-backs to go forward, it was a losing battle. The 3 kind of attacking players for Villa were never able really to craft out anything, whereas I think if they'd maybe gone a little bit narrower, crowded out the kind of centre mid and centre back area, which I think is United's big area of problems at the moment, I think they would have probably had a little bit more success.
Well,
Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, you mentioned when going with 2 strikers or whatever. When he brought Andreas Reimann on, it totally changed. I mean, we had about 15 minutes where we looked like we were going to score again, but by then it was just too late because it was 3-0. We never really were going to come back from that, and I think the 3-0 kind of flattered United in a way because they didn't have to do anything. They weren't good. They were kind of just, they turned up. And the game was kind of won for them by us playing badly. I think that was more of the problem.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention that I thought United... Did you know it's a good win for United? Because even though it's Villa, who aren't considered a top team, they did have Raphael back. And we were just talking about win-backs. And I've just looked at the graph that StatsZone produced on Raphael's performance, and you can see that he really tried to get forward. He created 2 clear-cut chances from the right side. And put in a few more that weren't as successful. But I think that makes a huge difference to United. And didn't one of their goals come from a wide area cut across back to Welbeck?
Yeah. Well, it was within the first 10 minutes, it was obvious that they were targeting that left-hand side of the defence, with Baker playing left centre-half and Luna, and it was just... Giggs was just pinging diagonals over the head of Baker and into that gap for Valencia to run onto, and those 2 along the right hand side just killed us basically because Gabby wasn't tracking back at all.
Yeah, because Raphael's been out, hasn't he? I think that's a big thing. I think that's a big plus for United that he's back and playing and firing, because as we were saying when we were talking about the wing backs, that Man United need good wing backs to be successful. And when you've got someone like, they're not bad in this position, but when you've got Phil Jones or Chris Smalling playing there, it's not going to have the same impact as someone who's naturally going to play there. And I think Raphael certainly offers a different option for United going forward.
Yeah.
Good to see Welbeck score a couple, actually. Because I think a lot of people write Welbeck off.
I'm one of those people.
I think he's a better player than people realise. I think he's limited in opportunities. He doesn't play that often. And it was the case with... you could put it forward for a lot of players. Well, how good would you be if you did your job for 10 minutes a week?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he needs more of a chance. And if he's gonna, because he scored in the opening day and he's not scored since.
Yeah, he
and that's because Moyes feels like he has to play Van Persie and Rooney together, and if not, then he has to play Rooney up front and be the focus. And Hernandez hasn't made as much of an impact this year as has in previous years. But yeah, I think it's a good win for United. Villa won't expect anything from that game, but you look at Man United this year, and then maybe they would have thought they could have grabbed something, especially being at home. United playing the way they are.
Yeah, but it was although we weren't really expecting a win. Last season the performance was a million times better than the one yesterday. The thing that stuck out about yesterday was that it was just a bit. We didn't really. The 2 goals within 5 minutes just knocked the stuffing out of us, and then after that, we just didn't have any fight at all. You'd think that they'd be up for a game against United, and last season, it was a really, really good game. It was close, and we pushed them, right till the last minute. And it took a brilliant Ferguson tactical change to change the game. But yeah, yesterday we really didn't look up to it.
So speaking of teams not looking up to it, Tottenham. I'm loving this.
Nowhere near as good. Nowhere near as good. I was going to say, speaking of managers under pressure, but never mind.
What managers under pressure? Is Lambert really under pressure?
No, but Moyes is. Saved his job for another week.
That's true. But I suppose someone who was under pressure until about 4 hours before we started recording. Villas Boas.
Pressure was relieved.
Relieved, we should say, yeah.
Shall we talk about the game and then come on to what we think about the sacking?
Yeah, it's a bit
that's the way we should go.
Of an odd one, isn't it?
We've made it pretty clear that me and Jack are fans of the Reds. And without being biased, we were fucking brilliant. And honestly, I've not seen Liverpool play that well under Brendan Rodgers at all. Like, no, not at all. They've played well. But to go to White Hart Lane and absolutely destroy a Tottenham team that can't defend for a start and can't make clear-cut opportunities often enough to even consider scoring, we bossed them, mainly my main man, Jordan Henderson, man of the match.
He had a great game. He was really, really good. I mean, another good point Mark Lawrenson made last night on Match of the Day. He's doing quite well.
He had a drink. He had a drink.
He had a great game. But without Gerrard being in there, it kind of took the pressure. So Henderson was allowed to express himself a bit more, and he did do it, and he was really, really good. Was Gerrard injured?
Yeah, Gerrard's injured till January, so there's going to be a good month now.
Yeah, I think if he can really sort of kick on over Christmas, and he can play like that, produce a few more performances like that, then it could be really good for you.
See, it's interesting you say that, because for me, I find it a little bit somewhat frustrating that Match of the Day we're so happy about Henderson's performance, because it acts like that's the first time he's played well for Liverpool. And in reality, for someone that watches them every single week, I don't think there'll be Liverpool fans who will watch that game and thought, I'm not surprised about what Jordan Henderson's just done, because he showed that's like kind of been on the verge of happening for, and this might sound ridiculous to some people that don't watch him every week, for about a year.
He's been warming up, hasn't he?
He's been so key to how we've played recently because of how energetic he is, and he thrives on responsibility. He absolutely thrives on it. When he plays in the middle and he's asked to distribute, gather, track down, close down, do all those things, he's one of the, I'm not going to say one of the best midfielders in the league, but he's one of the most exciting midfielders in the league because of how he gets up and down and how he supports and how he defends and how he tracks back. He made some great tackles as well. Like, people don't think about this, but he closed down so well, just stifling Tottenham.
I do think, he's been good for you this season, and just and kind of, he did show it a little bit last year in patches, but particularly this season, he's kicked on a lot. He's been really impressive.
He's been a lot more consistent, but with Suarez heading it, he hasn't kind of got that exposure that he probably deserves. I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I wasn't expecting a win at White Hart Lane. We hadn't won in 7, I think it was, going into the game. So I wasn't really expecting anything. But after the first 15 minutes, after the first goal, I was thinking, this is looking good for us. So then 2-0 at half time, could have been a lot more. I think we hit the woodwork once in this first half, once in the second. The sending off, yes, it's I don't know what you guys think. I think it was a red. I can see why someone wouldn't see it given as a red. If it was my team, I'd be annoyed, particularly in that situation. But to me, you can't raise a foot like that and have your stud showing at kind of chest height.
Well, I tweeted, why are Tottenham fans surprised? He's studded him in the chest.
Yeah.
Like, is that his studs have entered his chest? I don't care how hard it is. His studs have hit his chest. Like, I don't care if he's bleeding or not. His foot has hit Suarez. Suarez does shout out really loud though.
He always does that.
It still annoys me. I mentioned it. I think I said it on the podcast. Suarez, he always stays on the pitch because Suarez goes ah. It's like, shut up, just go down and stay down. Everyone can see you've been kicked near the face. Don't do that. It really, honestly, when he does it when he dives as well, he throws his arms. Just don't do it. If you're going to go down, just go down. But everyone knows you're being fouled because you make a big fuss about it when you're on the floor. But like we were saying recently about the Morales tackle, just to harp back to that, it's the same thing. This time a player's got sent off for a foul on him, but he's just got to pack in the hysterics. That said, he's the best player in the world at the moment.
See, I looked into this because after the game, there was a lot of, Tottenham fans pretty unhappy, and I think they have a right to be. When your team has 20 touches in the opposition box and no shots on target, you are going to be pissed off at home. And when you concede 5, that clearly compounds the situation into a shit. But anyway, I went on Reddit and I went on the Spurs subreddit because well, the thing is, all different teams have their subreddits where you can kind of follow your team or whatever. But I was just curious what Spurs fans were thinking because I saw on Twitter, you see on Twitter people say like blame the ref and whatever, but the people on Reddit, they kind of go into a bit more detail. I found it ridiculously kind of fascinating the fact that I think Spurs have scored 15 goals all season and their top goal scorer Sigurdsson's not started in a month. Like, they're not playing him. And
Sigurdsson, their top scorer.
Yeah, if you exclude penalties, because obviously that's not really a goal, from open play...
Hang on.
Well, no, because
it is a goal.
Yeah, okay, it's a goal, but it's not kind of, a chance taken in the same way that, say, anything else is.
So who's their proper top scorer?
I don't know, it might still be Sigurdsson.
No, sorry. Penalties count.
Okay, Sigurdsson, one of their best goal-scoring threats...
From open play. You should have said that. Not penalties don't count.
If you have the stats, it sounds better. But no, I mean, why he's not starting is beyond me. Paulinho, I'm sorry, I've seen him play a few times this season. He looks shit.
I don't agree, but
I don't agree with that.
I think
he's really good.
If you watch him, I think Spurs' problem was that their defence is trying to push at home, and their midfield and attack put no pressure on the midfield. And with a team like Liverpool, they build up a lot of their play from fairly deep, normally with Lucas and Gerrard, but in this case Lucas and Alan, building up their play from fairly deep. It's asking for trouble when your defence is playing a high line. So you've got Capoue and Dawson pushed
was
up.
Awful, by the way.
But
he had an absolute nightmare.
But what was happening?
I think I've got a reason to why Paulinho's shit though. I think I know why you're thinking this. I don't think he trusts Dawson or Capoue, and rightly so. They were dreadful, and I think he feels forced to sit back. But I don't think that's where he wants to be because he doesn't do that for Brazil.
Oh no, he's not said about the problem they've got is they've got Vertonghen injured, they've got Kabul injured, and I can't remember who the other player is. He's injured, but basically 3 of their first 4. Kirikes. But the problem for Tottenham was they're trying to play a high line, but then their midfield puts no pressure on the team. We talked about this 3 weeks ago, how Tottenham didn't know how to play and how Villas-Boas didn't know his best team after their defeat to Man City. And what was happening was, I didn't see Soldado close down the Liverpool defence once. I didn't see either of the wide players for Tottenham close them down once. And when your defence play a high line and you put no pressure on a team that plays from fairly deep in terms of where they craft their opportunities and ping it up to Suarez, you are asking for trouble. And in the first half you could see it, ball would get pinged over the top. Dawson and Capoue must have been sick of turning around and having to chase back 30 yards every 5 minutes, because that's what it was like watching the game. And for me, Tottenham, They tried to replace like for like in the summer. It's really not worked because they've tried to stick with the same system as last year, and because of the new players they've got, they've added a lot more quality, and yet they don't play to that new quality that they have.
Yeah, it looks like he's kind of not got his message properly over to like all parts of the team. He like you said, the defence, they're playing the high line. That's easy to kind of coach into a defence, but to kind of ingrain the pressing kind of mentality into the rest of the players, it's a lot more difficult to do, and kind of parts of it are developing where others are not, and it's not kind of producing an even result.
Yeah, we can compare like the City game to the Liverpool Tottenham game in the way that we spoke about how dominant City were with those two midfielders playing against a midfield 4 or 5 or 3 or 4, and the reverse happened at White Hart Lane. Liverpool had 3 or 4 midfielders, like Coutinho, Henderson, Alan Lucas, and they absolutely ran ragged the duo of Sandro until he got injured, but Paulinho and Dembele it turned out to be in the end.
Paulinho started just then. I can't remember who came on now. The problem for Tottenham, I actually think, is they have Dembele, one of the best ball-carrying midfielders. When he has the ball at his deck, he will run at defences from the centre of midfield, which is fairly rare, and he's quite good creatively. Eriksen's been injured, so that's been a problem. Sigurdsson, I really rate that guy, and I don't know why he's not been starting more, because he's their top goal scorer in open play, and he's a very good player. But you looked at how their midfield lined up. They had Sandro, Dembele and Paulinho. I don't rate Paulinho, people can disagree, but then Sandro and Dembele, neither of those players are particularly what I'd describe as kind of players who are going to get up as much. Dembele will, and I think Dembele's not had the best season, but then I don't know, it just doesn't seem to fit together. You've got this jigsaw of all these players that Tottenham have, midfielders and wide players, and it fundamentally doesn't fit together, or it doesn't seem to be able to fit together. And AVB's kind of trying all these different combinations, and then he'll end up trying the same one again and again and again, hoping that the pieces are going to fit, and it's just not falling for him, and as a result, he's lost his job.
Yeah. So maybe we should talk a little bit about the sacking and stuff now. I just put a tweet in Skype.
You did?
About...
Apparently they've contacted you. Are you going to take it?
Spurs apparently have been kind of have taken a look at Pochettino as well as a potential replacement for AVB. Do you think there's anything in that?
I saw Capello at the game. Capello was at the game as well. So.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't think that would be a good appointment.
It's been a bit weird because there's been a few sackings since we did the last episode. Obviously, Yol got sacked, but he's been replaced. Steve Clarke. Kind of surprised by that one. That one, I don't think. I feel like with Villas-Boas, it's kind of been drilled in the media. Like, Tottenham are struggling. He could lose his job. But West Brom, sure, they're 16th, but I'm kind of surprised they've got rid of him so soon.
Well, can we talk about Steve Clarke? I've got a big rant about the Steve Clarke.
You go for it.
Living where I am as well, I've got a lot of Albion friends, and they all have opinions on it and stuff. So
he should absolutely have been sacked.
Yeah.
They've got 37 points from their last 40 games. That is relegation form in anyone's book. They've won 6 games since the 27th of December. Not good enough. I don't care if they didn't get any. To be honest, it's the board's fault. The board didn't back him. If they didn't give him any money to spend, and especially if they lost out on Lukaku and brought in Anachibi, you're bound to be shit. Sorry, but I don't care. He's doing it wrong. The board didn't back him, and then he's just sort of sat there and not tried anything new. West Brom have set up the same way the whole season. Went to the start of the season, did okay, but didn't change anything. And everyone just went, okay, well, this is how you play. So now we're going to just dominate you. Yeah. Steve Clarke's very good tactically, but he's got to change things. And you could arguably say he hasn't got the players to do so. But for me, I don't see the whole, why was he sacked? They've won 6 games in a year. Not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, all the Albion fans that I know kind of agreed with that. Their form since, the turn of the year has been pretty dire. And I don't... Because... Obviously, the Albion had Dan Ashworth in before he went to the FA, and he handled a lot of transfers and things like that. I don't know if it was Clarke's decision to sign players like Sessegnon and Anachibi, but they've not really been integrated that well.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Sessegnon's a decent player, but you need more than 2. You compare him to all the teams around them. You look at Norwich, Southampton, even West Ham. All spent big money this summer. All thought we're not going to aim for Europe, but we fucking don't want to go down, so we'll spend 25 million. And I looked very into the West Brom thing, because I was doing some work for it. They are a club that are on the verge this year, and will do this year, because they didn't spend very much money at all. They'll be running on profit. They're one of the only clubs in the Premier League to be running on profit at the end of this term. I guess you call it this season. Sorry, term. It's not school. What the fuck am I talking about? At the end of the season, they'll run on profit, and not many teams do that. And I can see exactly why they're doing it. But it is such a gamble to say, well, let's not invest heavily this summer. Let's run on a profit and then be in a healthy situation for if it's like they're prepping for relegation.
It does look that way.
In a bizarre way. Like, obviously they don't want to go down.
They shouldn't be, especially with the players they've got and how they've been playing for the last sort of 18 months, with the kind of last couple of seasons they've had. They should really, this summer, should have been a chance for them to go out and spend a bit of money and to try and, get into the top 10, potentially.
Yeah, you look at, like you say, you look at the teams around them, you look at all the teams around them, all spent money. And the teams that didn't are struggling this year. And they're one of them.
I just feel like they'd be safe if they had a goal scorer, and I think they're missing out on Lukaku on the last day of the transfer window. Why it was left that late to try and loan him back, I don't know. If Mourinho wasn't sure whether he wanted to let him go or not, because of course he played in the tournaments. But it's just like, I think if they'd got him, that would have been the goal scorer they needed. I mean, they lost to Cardiff today. They lost to Cardiff. Cardiff away isn't necessarily the easiest game. They beat Man City there. Did they beat Man City? They beat United as well. They got points.
They did,
they did beat them.
So I don't feel like 1-0 is like the worst result ever, but I do agree with you on the whole losing front. I appreciate that teams want to, get a new coach in, especially if they're intending to pump some money into the club in January, because there's nothing worse than giving a manager a load of money in January and sacking him in February.
Well, this is why they're all happening now, because
But it's like, for me, I almost wish that they'd given him the time to bring in some players, because I think Steve Clarke knows where he wanted to improve, and I think he just missed out on a few players in the summer transfer window, which ultimately I think there are a few players off being safe, like very safe. They finished 8th last year. Was it 8th, or was that the season before? They did
really well last season. I'm not sure where they finished. It was certainly between 12th and 8th. But I blame the board. If I'm Steve Clarke and if I'm a fan of West Brom, he's not performed well enough to stay in the job. But the board didn't back him. The board have basically said, well, we're not going to spend the money on transfers this season, but we're going to have to pay you off now. Yeah. Which is, I don't know who they're going to get in who will do or have enough impact. Because West Brom oh God. Well, apparently Di Matteo's talk. I don't see that happening. Di Matteo, Stuart Pearce is another one who's out of work. I don't know. I don't know who will take that job.
I mean, there are a few other...
It's not an easy job.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a few other clubs who their managers are under pressure. I mean, we touched on the West Brom game, they lost, but Norwich got another point against Swansea today, which isn't a bad point for them.
Jerry Hooper scored a screamer.
Yeah, it was a good goal. And Hewn, after a month or two ago, might have been the manager that you'd have predicted around about now to be sacked. He's kind of... slowly keeping his head above water, just about. I don't think Norwich will go down this year. I think he should be in his job come May, and he should not just be able to handle.
I feel like this year Norwich are one of the teams I'm going to be honest, I thought they might go down, just because they brought in players, but I wasn't sure if they were going to hit the ground running, because the players they bought, none of them had played in the Premier League except Almanda. Whereas I think they're slowly finding their feet now. It's taken a little bit while. Hooper's now scoring a few more. He was out injured at the start of the season. And I think Norwich are going to stay up this year on virtue of the fact that Fulham, Sunderland, and I think, who else is there? Crystal Palace are just bad teams. I think they're probably the worst. I don't want to slate those teams, and I know that kind of Crystal Palace and Fulham are still within touching distance of the pack ahead, 1 point behind West Ham in 17th. But for me, Crystal Palace, Fulham and Sunderland are three of the weakest teams that kind of in relation to the other teams who have definitely strengthened up over the summer. Like in the Premier League in recent memory. I want it to be close at the bottom because I think it's exciting, but for me, I look at the table now, Norwich 5 points clear of the drop, Crystal Palace, Fulham and Sunderland, I just can't see where their wins are going to come from except when they play each other.
Yeah, I think Norwich will come top 10, by the way.
Oh, he's called it now.
I think they'll come 10th. I think the criticism of Houghton was a bit ridiculous. They had a run of games which was like Liverpool, Chelsea, United, City, Arsenal, lost them all. And then since that, they've had easier games and they've not lost since.
To be fair, at least it proves that FM is fairly accurate when you have a really tough start to the season and still get your job under fire.
Norwich have got a goal scorer. You look at the bottom, like this was talked about quite a lot. I don't want to just say I don't want to say what other people have said this weekend, but Norwich have got a goal scorer. You look at the bottom 7 as it is right now. Name someone else in the bottom 7 who's got someone that's scoring a lot.
Josie Altidore.
Exactly. I can't name one.
I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, the only teams to score more than Norwich, who are below them, are West Brom and Fulham. But I think one of Norwich's big problems has been defensively, and I know that Man City game kind of skews, I suppose, the records and whatever. But Fulham and Sunderland. That's how we're referred to Fulham and Sunderland.
That place has never been referred to as Funderland, let me tell you.
Well, I was meant to say Fulham and Sunderland, but I'm going to refer to them as Funderland now.
Funderland. We need to make a point of this. This has to stay now for like the whole of the season. Funderland went down this weekend. I can't wait for that.
Well, it's like Fulham and Sunderland. They've both conceded 30 goals. Norwich have the second worst defence in the league with 29, and the next worst is Crystal Palace with 24. For me, I'm a little bit worried if I'm a Norwich fan, particularly that goal difference. They have the third worst goal difference in the league, and I think that could play a role in where they finish come the end of the season, but I do think they'll be safe. I mean, I'm looking at the other games quickly now because we need to move on. We've been having a nice in-depth discussion, but it's lasted a lot longer than it normally does, our discussions. But
how long have we gone on for, just out of interest?
I have no idea, but I hope people have been enjoying it because I felt like the conversation's kind of been fairly technically adept and accurate this week.
My presence.
Kino's going to blame it completely on his presence. Other games, Crystal Palace only losing 2-1 away at Stamford Bridge. I think they'll be happy with that. Everton compounding Fulham with a 4-1 win at home. I mean, Fulham looked good in the second half of that game, and I think 4-1 flattered Everton, but doesn't really help when you're at the bottom of the table. And then there were draws galore at the bottom of the table with West Ham.
Can I speed this up? Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, go for it.
bbc.co.uk/sport/football. Right, so okay. Champions League draw happened. Genuinely, this is how we're going. The Champions League draw just happened. Do you now know what happened, Jack?
I'm just going to Google it.
Alright.
Because I woke up about 20 minutes before we came in, and then Ben was like, I'll reveal it live, and then he revealed half of them. Right, okay, I've got the draw, we're done. I'm prepped.
We'll cover...
Tie of the round. There's only one.
That's Manchester United. Yeah,
there's only one. Man City, Barcelona.
That's going to be great. That's going to be great. Yeah, that's our way back at Barca. And Messi, who's not fully firing. And Aguero, who might not be fit quite by then. It'll be touch and go, I think.
First game's at the Etihad, and then second leg's Camp Nou. So it could be quite interesting.
I can see both teams winning it. I don't know about you two. I can see Barca. Barca haven't been.
Well, there can only be one winner.
Point. Yeah, that is a flaw in what I've just said. But I think I think both teams have got a chance. But that's equally as pathetic, really, because of course they have. They're in a football match.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I think City have got enough to go toe-to-toe with Barcelona.
Yeah,
how's that?
I think. Yeah, you've got a point. I can't see past. I think Barca will have the sort of the know-how, just because their squad's full of so many players who are Champions League savvy, and I think they might just be able to see it through. If they can get away with maybe, a 1-goal deficit after the first leg, and they've got Messi back, they should be able to see it out. I was just looking at a poll on some website earlier. The general consensus is kind of City. I don't think they're favourites at all. They shouldn't be, at least, but maybe on domestic form could well be.
But for their game, they should just put running tracks on either wing, because it's like Zabaleta, Alves, Clichy. Just stick some running tracks down. Yeah. Don't even bother with pitch. There's no point. You're gonna wreck it.
I think it's interesting because a lot of people have kind of picked up on the fact Messi's been, he's been toying with muscle injuries, I believe, just here, there, and everywhere. It's kind of caught up with him, all the football he's been playing. But Barcelona, I think a lot of people kind of thought, well, what's going to happen if Messi gets injured? Whilst Barcelona have a lot of players, he's a very key player of their kind of system, and I feel as if they kind of bedded Fabregas in to kind of play the Messi role if he ever did get injured.
Well, Cesca's been particularly good this season. This has been the year that he's kind of kicked on a bit more. With Xavi sort of in and out now, he's not going to play every game.
Yeah.
Cesca's been sort of heir apparent to Xavi for quite a few years.
Barcelona are top of the league still, and granted they have lost one and they have drawn one, but
54 weeks at the top of the table now, which is a new record.
Wow.
54
well,
weeks.
To be fair, But actually, I can't check it enough. They are equal with Atletico Madrid with 16 games played, 14 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss apiece. And they have the exact same goal difference. And I think Barcelona are ahead on goals scored. So how long that's going to last for, I'm not sure.
And Atletico are my Spanish team, but they are in the form of their lives. So
they're playing so well.
It's no disgrace for Barca right now to be level with them. And I think kind of just general Champions League draw talk to try and keep it on topic. The other night I heard this is more pundit bashing. Jamie Redknapp going, I think I'd looking at that list, I'd take Atletico Madrid out of that, and I was just like, and Thierry Henry looked at him and went, no, not at all. That's not what you want, because Atletico are 2 years ago when Simeone came in, they were about 12th. They were about 30 points off the top, and in 2 years' time, knock out of the Champions League and they're joint top of the Liga. He's been absolutely brilliant for them. They've also got, arguably, I know Suarez has been probably the best, but one of the informed players in Europe in Costa up front who
He's been insane, hasn't he? The thing that I found interesting is that I think they're going to go into the game against AC Milan, who they've been drawn against, Atletico. I think they've got a chance of winning that. I think if the draw is kind
I don't think they've got a chance. I think they'll hammer them.
I think they... I would, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, Atletico might not have the squad to keep with the big two in Spain for the rest of the season, week after week grinding it out. But as we saw with Dortmund last year, they've got to only play about 6 games to get to the final. And in a short form kind of game where they can sort of go full intensity for 90 minutes with their best team, I could certainly see them, causing quite a few upsets, because they're so solid, they're so well organised, but they've got that sort of flair and power up front as well.
They've got that firepower, haven't they? They've got that thing that I think a few teams are missing. There's very few teams, I guess, in Europe that have that kind of out-and-out striker. I mean, speaking of out-and-out strikers, Drogba, of course, Galatasaray v Chelsea, but I just kind of feel like, I don't know, there's very few teams who...
Your links are so full.
They are. It's like, I don't know, for me, there's very few teams in Europe where you look at them and go, that's their goal scorer. The big teams, yes, but then you look at players like Bayer Leverkusen, I'm like, have they got a goal scorer who's going to make every team in Europe quake? Kind of thing when you hear their name come out. I might even say the same about kind of Schalke. I know they've got Huntelaar, and then you've got teams like Zenit, who I'm not even sure how they've got through, but credit to them. But going to Dortmund, it's just, I don't know. I feel as if Atletico Madrid, as you mentioned, are incredibly solid, and I think that the form Diego Costa's in, if they keep hold of him, I think it'll be an achievement, because I know Spanish teams do operate at quite, not at losses, but I think it's something like Barcelona and Real Madrid combined make 7 times more than any other team. Like all the other teams combined, 7 times more than that. It's something ridiculous, because the Spain finances are kind of a bit here, there and everywhere in La Liga. So whether or not they can keep him is another question. But I don't know. I feel I'd love to see Atletico win. Maybe this will be the season where, I don't want to say random teams win in every league, and I don't want to sound like a delusional Liverpool fan.
Teams.
But we can see Atletico and Liverpool win the leagues, or something, really odd, because it's kind of, I don't know, it seems like in a lot of the leagues, with the exception of the Bundesliga, it's incredibly tight, and there's a lot of new emerging kind of teams in Europe who are certainly giving the big boys pound-for-pound punches and keeping it in the competitions.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, like next weekend at lunchtime, or I think it's like 2:30, because Liverpool are the early kickoff. There's like a situation where on December there's something or other, Liverpool and Atletico Madrid could be top of their respective leagues in December. Who would have thought? The odds on getting that? Oh, blimey.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I hope that people don't, the big clubs won't start circling around the Atletico. So players like Koke and Costa, obviously.
He's brilliant, Koke, by the way.
He
could be gone.
Just another one of sort of the tricky midfielders off the Spanish production line, but he's a little bit more kind of direct than someone like an Isco. A little bit more sort of better passer, sort of long range passing, and a bit more direct. Chips in with a few more goals. He's sort of something a little bit different, and they're playing that kind of the two up front. Obviously, they've been through some great strikers. Atletico have in the last sort of decade with Forlan, Aguero, Falcao, Villa.
Their operating costs depend on how much they sell their best player for.
Yes.
which is bizarre.
So there's that draw. There's, like you said, Dortmund Zenit. I'd expect Dortmund to move on through that, even though their squad's pretty depleted right now. They should have everyone back for that. And then Bayern Arsenal. What do you think about that one?
It's been a good run, Arsenal.
Yeah.
You've had fun, you scored a few goals, you lost to Napoli, but don't worry about that. You've had a good time. Remember that how hard you worked last year to get in the Champions League. That's a pity.
I mean, it's like it's the top teams in the Bundesliga and the Premier League coming head to head, which I think is going to be an interesting one. I mean, I was looking through this, and I just noticed a really startling pattern. I do follow the Serie A little bit, but AC Milan are the only Serie A team left.
Yeah.
And they're 12th in the league.
Third, I think.
AC Milan are 12th in their league. So it's good to see, almost, in a way, there was a time where the Premier League, you'd have 4 Premier League teams in like the semi-final of the Champions League and something ridiculous, you know what I mean? And it's kind of nice. I don't want to say it's nice to see Serie A struggling, but it's kind of, they've kind of tailed off a bit now. And I'm looking at this now, and you've seen like mainly German, English and Spanish teams, and I don't know, Arsenal v Bayern is kind of, it's going to be an interesting one to just see them go head to head. I think, especially, is the first leg Arsenal v Bayern, or is that the second leg?
I'm not sure, but
Arsenal are home first. Yeah. All the top seeded teams play second at home. We'll play home second. If that makes sense.
All right.
Yeah. So I can't. I think Bayern have, out of all the sort of the teams who have come in as reigning champions, I think they've probably got the best chance to do the impossible and retain it for the second year.
Jack, can we talk about polls, please? Just because I think we can link this. So I've got them if you like. I can run this.
You go ahead. So last week we asked you guys about the Ballon d'Or and who you thought was going to win it, and of course one of the ones who was right up there was Ribery of Bayern Munich. I think the other options we had mainly were Messi and Ronaldo, and I myself said Ronaldo. I can't remember who you said now, Ben.
I think I probably went Ronaldo. Shall I tell you the results of the polls? Go
and tell me. I want Pirlo to win it, but it's not.
Okay, so well, hang on. This isn't official. just so you know, this is the ForTheFans poll.
We're announcing the Ballon d'Or winner live.
Well, no, I want to see Pirlo win it.
Okay, so first we'll do who people wanted to win, and we had 51 votes, which is pretty good. Let's go for 100 votes on this week's poll. I'll let you know what it is shortly. Already got it prepared. Ronaldo, 33%, followed by other, which I feel like what you've done there, folks, is take what I said of don't vote other because it means Heskey, and do it anyway, you dicks. Then Ibrahimovic, which I like to see, 16th. Then Messi, Ribery, Pirlo, all around the same area. Robin didn't get any votes. Neymar, despite winning the Champions League and the League and the German Cup, but forget him. Didn't get any votes, maybe because he doesn't pass. And then who should win it? So that was kind of mixed, but Ronaldo kind of had it just, but it was very mixed. And then on who should win it, Ronaldo stormed it, 68% of the vote, with Messi and Ribery miles behind, 13 and 9%.
Yeah,
I think that's
Robin again, no votes. So
Team Robin out in force last week.
He's going to be gutted. So that poll is now closed.
Please do not phone in. Your calls may be charged. Your vote will not count.
Plus one, they don't count either. So
if you're watching this, plus one or on demand.
This week's poll, pretty simple, pretty obvious. Who is going to win the Champions League, in our opinion? Just who you think. We're not going to do 2 polls this week, just one single poll. Everyone vote for it. For the teams listed, I'm only going to put Jack's going to do it because I can't be bothered. The teams that were the top seeds. So there will be an other category, but
for Team Zenit, Galatasaray, and Olympiakos.
Yeah, well, City, Arsenal, whatever, they're all the others. So if you want to vote for them, I'll take it as City or Arsenal, because I don't think many Galatasaray fans listen to ForTheFans. But the other 8 options will be the top seed: Barcelona, United, Atletico Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Dortmund, and Bayern München. So yeah, thanks for voting on the last one, by the way. Very helpful.
It was appreciated.
And do this one.
Are we talking about who we would vote for?
Let's go for it. Bish bash bosh. One word, one team. Go, Kino.
Atletico Madrid.
Ben.
Paris Saint-Germain.
Me. Bayern Munich.
I said Paris Saint-Germain before the tournament, and then now I've got Bayer Leverkusen. So.
I think I said a few weeks ago someone really random like Napoli, so now I feel really stupid.
I did, I remember saying Juventus at the start of the season, and look how that turned out.
Yeah. Italy should have had an off year.
To touch on your Serie A thing, which you said, it doesn't help that they've only got the 3 spots. Juve were a little bit unfortunate with the the whole drama with the snow and the hail and stuff. I do think that they could potentially do something in the Champions League maybe next season, but because they're so dominant in Italy.
Yeah.
It's a strange kind of thing and like you said, with Milan being 12th and sneaking through, things like that, there are quite a few kind of newish developing sort of teams in Italy right now, with Montella at Fiorentina, and Roma, obviously. They're not in Europe, so that's helping them in the domestic kind of campaign.
They're in a very much Liverpool kind of situation, aren't they, Roma?
Yeah.
So not being in Europe and their league form's becoming good a bit.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of slipped about 2 points off Juve now, but I think they'll probably qualify for the Champions League, so that could be an interesting team to watch out for.
Yeah, on the Italian league thing, I think it happened 2 years ago, whatever, but the big thing that changed was the 2 best players from Italy went to France.
Yeah.
So, Zlatan and Thiago Silva just picked up their money, went to France, and then Monaco emerged as well. They'll be in the Champions League next year, I'm pretty sure.
Not performing great though at the moment. They're kind of stuttering through.
They're one of those teams, aren't they, that have got so much quality compared to the rest of the league that they'll be absolutely fine. So
I think that the kind of the general standard of sort of the top 6 teams in Serie A is actually it's quite a consistent league, but there's no kind of team that can really sort of kick on at a European level.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other thing that's holding them back is just how dominant Juventus have been. I think that lack of competition, not just from kind of a, competition standpoint, but from a financial standpoint, Juve just dominate that league and they really do kind of just, boss the other teams. And it's going to be tough for teams to overthrow them. I think Roma are in second at the moment with a game in hand, and if they were to win that, they'd close the gap to 3 points. So maybe they can give them a run for their money, but... With
Gervinho leading the line in a false 9.
True.
They play an interesting system, Roma do, because obviously still living on the Francesco Totti hype.
Yeah, I was going to say the Totti legacy of the 90s.
Yeah, with him in a kind of false 9, but when he's not there, Gervinho, the forehead, filling in, doing a great job. He's been unplayable at times this season. I watched when they played Fiorentina last Sunday, and he was literally absolutely killed it. It was brilliant. But yeah, there could be an interesting team next season.
Bristol, we jokingly said last week that we were gonna we'd talk about one voted subject, and the subject was Bristol. So, guys, I want you to give me one fact about Bristol.
What, the football teams, or just...
I think we're meant to talk about football, but there really isn't that much to talk about. So, if you've got... I'll go first. I'll say Bristol is the largest city in southwest England.
Okay, good. Kino, have you got any Bristol facts?
Doesn't have to be true.
It doesn't have to be true.
There's been... the town of Bristol, according to archaeological evidence, is believed to be around 60,000 years old. There's thought to be human settlement in that area for 60,000 years.
All right, time team. Ben.
Bristol has 2 daily newspapers, the Western Daily Press and the Bristol Evening Post. A weekly free newspaper, the Bristol Observer, a great read, might I add. That's not written down. A Bristol edition of the free Metro newspaper is also in publication, also owned by the Daily Mail and General Trust.
So, guys, if we've inspired you to go and visit Bristol, go to visitbristol.co.uk, where you can find out more about the fascinating city of Bristol and decide that you don't want to go.
Bristol is also twinned with Bordeaux, as well as Porto. And, oh my word! You'll never guess who they're twinned with.
Who?
The team Jack was in China.
No, they're not.
No.
What are they called?
Wait, Guangzhou?
Yeah.
No way.
Where is this?
Bristol, honestly, in the Twin City. There you are. There's a bit of Bristol FM chat.
That is the FM chat for this week, because there really isn't too much to talk about in the FM sphere this week, so we just focused on football. But on that bombshell, it's time to end. Thank you for watching the podcast as always, guys. Ben and Kino, say your final words. Say goodbye to the people.
Keno, go first because I have a little thing I do. So,
Bristol has 51 Grade 1 listed buildings. I'll
it's
see
me,
you
Ben. It's me, Ben, and I'm out.
I'm sorry, but Keno, no one cares about Bristol facts anymore. Anyway, yeah, thank you for watching, guys. If you've enjoyed the podcast, it's available on demand. Why do we always say this at the end? I don't even know. It doesn't even matter. Guys, thank you so much for watching. It is me, Jack, and we are out.
We are out. As well as being out, Bristol has 2 principal railway stations.
This is a Bernini sculpture of a goal, Pablo. It's perfection. Pablo, I think you'd be having to call for an oxygen tank for me, my friend.